Welcome to the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. I'm Wade Mathews, the Be Ready Utah manager here at the Utah Division of Emergency Management. And with me today are Kris, Hamlet, the director of the Utah Division of Emergency Management, and Joe Dougherty, Public Information Officer for the Division of Emergency Management. Thank you for being here today. Welcome back, Joe.
Hey, happy to be here.
And let's just start right off. What is emergency management? We are the division, but what is emergency management?
Well, the Division of Emergency Management is just another discipline within the first responder community. We're actually an agency that falls under the Department of Public Safety. And basically, we're kind of focused on four main pillars, which would be preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. And a lot of what we do is kind of filling in the gaps for what some of the local level government is not able to accomplish due to lack of resources or an overwhelming situation. The Division of Emergency Management is just one level of discipline. We start at the local level. There's local emergency management agencies at the city level, the town level. There's counties that have them, tribes. We also have emergency managers that exist within healthcare, higher education, the private sector, nonprofits. So it's a whole system of agencies that work together to basically address needs when there's a disaster, large-scale disaster or emergency that overwhelms the resources of a community.
Okay, and all those levels that you talked about, of course, we also partner with the federal level, federal emergency management agency, so we have that good relationship as well.
Yeah, definitely, and in fact, a lot of times when people ask who is DEM, I often refer to us as the state version of FEMA, and obviously everybody's pretty familiar with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and yeah, we report up to them, we work with them for funding, we work with them on programs. There's definitely a system of support in emergency management that works its way up from the most local level to the federal.
Okay, and Joe, I've worked in an emergency management agency where at one point there was a question, do we really need this after some of our risks and hazard were removed? Do we really need it? Why emergency management?
So emergency management as a discipline has been around for a really, really long time, even back to the foundations of the United States. There are instances where the federal government and other jurisdictions helped with the response when a local jurisdiction was overwhelmed. And so I think the one thing most people need to realize is this is kind of a civics 101 discussion here, but cities have the primary responsibility to take care of everything within their jurisdiction. Any emergency, local taxation, all those local things that have to happen in a city to make a city work. And it's very easy for an incident to suddenly overwhelm them. If you think about a typical city in Utah probably has about one police officer for every 1,000 residents. Well, if anything requires more effort than that, it's very easy for them to be overwhelmed. And so that's why this other discipline has been created and evolved over time to figure out how can we get more resources. That could be people or stuff, equipment, porta potties, ice, whatever those things are that are needed on the ground to help responders do their jobs. I had a chance to talk to our local emergency managers the other day, and the thing that I try to get across to them is we want you to be the rock stars in your communities. And that's why we exist at the state level, to provide those resources when needed so the locals can perform to the very best of their abilities.
Yeah, thank you. So you do exist at the state level. In what form? What's the organization of DEM look like?
Well, like I said, we fall under the Department of Public Safety, but within the division, we're broken up into three bureaus. We have a Preparedness and Outreach Bureau, we have an Operational Bureau, and we also have a Mitigation and Finance Bureau. So very distinct sections that work within each of those bureaus that all come together to meet all the goals and objectives of emergency management at the state level. We have things we do on the Blue Sky Days, which are basically preparation. We're doing training and exercise. We're doing lots of planning. We're out meeting with our partners and trying to build relationships through our community liaisons. And then we also have a big component that's working on the days when we know there's going to be an emergency or disaster. And some of those happen on the response effort where we're working with our operations and logistics folks. And then we also have a group that's focusing on what's going to happen when we're into recovery mode and mitigation. So we have different groups within those bureaus that all have their own specialty, their subject matter experts in, and creating their piece of emergency management in Utah and making sure that we're covering those four main pillars we talked about earlier.
Right. Preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery.
Yep.
Exactly. And Joe, maybe you could tell us what the missions and visions, of DEM are. Maybe off the top of your head.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Our overall vision is a prepared and a resilient Utah. So what does it take to be resilient? It means that you're doing some things in advance, so you'll be able to bounce back when that disaster happens. And that preparedness is for everybody. It's for people, individuals and families. It's for businesses and schools and communities and local government and state government. And so our mission then is where we say we're going to take that vision and say, what are we going to do about that? Well, we're going to work with our local emergency management community. We're going to strengthen them. We train about 2,000 emergency managers and first responders every year through our training and exercise section. Because we want them to be the very best they can be. We can't do everything for them, but in their communities, they can be that pillar. And so we work with them. We do tremendous outreach through our Be Ready Utah program. Everything that you and your team do is phenomenal through your outreach on social media, the preparedness presentations, helping strengthen those individuals, because disaster recovery is going to depend on them. And so that regular person that might think, what do I have to do with this? It's like, you go be the very best prepared person you can be and help your neighbor do the same. And so these are kinds of the things, the activities that we do on a regular basis that are our mission, the things we do every day to help strengthen Utah, to achieve that vision of a resilient state.
Right. And in the blue sky days, can you give us some examples of some of the gray sky days? What are some of the incidents that the Division of Emergency Management has supported at the local level? All emergencies are local, one of the sayings we have here, but what are some of the examples that we could share?
Yeah, one personal one that I have is in 2015, I had the chance to deploy to Hilldale as a public information officer and to go support a community that is traditionally very, very private, does not relish media attention, but they found themselves in a position where the world was descending on their town. There were 13 fatalities just from within the city of Hilldale alone. This was a couple of polygamous families who were killed in a flash flood, and that's devastating. And the local officials were doing their very best, and they were up for 24 hours straight or more. And by the time we showed up on scene, myself and a few other public information officers, we could take that burden of dealing with the news media from them. We helped arrange press conferences, we wrote press releases, we did social media, all on their behalf. There's even press releases that are ready to go in case there are updates. So we've already provided those to the city. And to hear the gratitude that came from the mayor, for example, every time he saw me after that, he just wanted to give me a big hug because we helped them with this burden that they were dealing with. So that's one where we helped with a public information function. We also had community support liaisons that were on the ground, and our mitigation and recovery staff was also there, as well as a planner to help just keep that operation flowing efficiently and effectively.
Okay, any other examples you want to share?
I don't know if I'm going to go into any specific examples, but in Utah, fortunately, we have great local community responders and emergency management agencies, and most of these events are handled at their level, and we don't even need to get involved because they're able to take care of it. But throughout Utah, I mean, every year we have wildfires, we have flooding, we have hazardous materials incidents. I mean, these are the things that are fairly common in Utah, but we also have tornadoes. You know we had a big tornado come right through downtown Salt Lake City not too long ago, and we actually have tornadoes every year. Last year we had over 2,000 earthquakes in Utah. Most people aren't aware of because most of them aren't reported because of the size or where their epicenter hits. But things happen in Utah all the time. Luckily, we're a pretty safe state. Nationally, we're probably listed as one of the safest states for disasters and emergency events. So, but at the same time, we know those gray sky days do occur, and they're going to happen. We know we have a huge earthquake threat that's way overdue, and like I said, on a daily basis, we have things that do happen. Just a lot of times we don't hear about them.
Right. When the red flag goes up on those gray sky days, the call comes in. What does the DEM response look like? What resources do we have, and how does that look?
Initially, most of our response first comes in the form of just information gathering. A lot of times it's just a heads up that an event is occurring, and like I said, most of the time it's not even a request for DEM to provide support. It's just, this is happening and be ready just in case. But there are times when it does reach that next level, and at that point we gather our division and they go from doing their day-to-day jobs of planning, training, exercise, outreach messaging, and so on. And we come together as an operational group and start talking about how we support an agency or a community who's being affected by an emergency or disaster. And our roles change a little bit as we respond to the Emergency Operations Center and reach out to other members of state agencies that are part of the state emergency response team and talk about ways that we can help to alleviate some of the burden from the locals who may be overwhelmed by an incident.
One thing that's really interesting about that too is DEM owns like no resources. We own a sandbag machine and a mobile command vehicle. Like those are the two things that we have. The power that we do bring to a response is our ability to coordinate and our mandate to coordinate with all of the other state agencies. So when we had the windstorm in Centerville and Bountiful in 2011, we don't have heavy equipment, but you know who does? UDOT and the National Guard. And so what we did is we give them the task and the mission of doing debris removal on behalf of the local entity. So because that's our mandate, we just bring together all of the state agency partners and we train with them on a regular basis so that we are a state that is ready to act and to support that local response.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I mean, Joe kind of hit it there, but to kind of sum things up, our main two things we do are coordinate information and coordinate resources. And that's probably the biggest value we provide because there's just not time for some of these agencies to do that. Law enforcement's doing their thing, fire's doing their thing, health's doing theirs, and emergency management helps to bring all those first responders together in those disciplines and create that emergency management system to basically be able to deal with whatever situation they're given that day when the skies are gray and things aren't going well.
Yeah, if you think about it, we are an agency that develops partnerships. We have to be partners with our state agencies. We have to be partner across disciplines. So we have numerous committees and associations that we either have created or support. Our Public Information Officers Association, we're big supporters of that. We support the State Hazard Mitigation Team. We support what has been the Citizen Corps Council. We support the Emergency Management Association in our state as well.
PIO Association.
The PIO, exactly, because these people need to have the relationships. They need to know how they are supposed to respond together, and they can't do that if they never get together. And we're the agency that is the gatherer. I find that we're always kind of putting our arms around agencies and groups and people to make sure that they know one another.
Right. We mentioned the partnership that we have with FEMA. Can you talk about the big projects that we have coming up, one this year and one next year that we're working on with FEMA that would benefit Utah?
Sure. Right now we're in a 2-year cycle where we're working on what they refer to as an exercise of national significance. And Utah's been identified for this exercise because of our threat on the Wasatch Front with the Wasatch Fault and the big earthquake scenario. So we're in a process right now of working with FEMA, with other federal partners, with state partners, locals, nonprofits, you name it, private sector, and we're meeting and talking about various things that need to be addressed if we do have this catastrophic earthquake event. This year in May, we're going to be having, May and June, an exercise that's going to come on board for logistical purposes where we're going to talk about how to move resources. How is the federal government going to get resources into our state after a big earthquake might destroy many of the infrastructure systems that we would normally bring commodities in through, the roadways, the airways, and look at how we can bring those into the state, go from the federal to the state to the local levels and get supplies, commodities to those individuals who are hurting as a result of this event. And then next year in 2021, we'll be having the larger exercise, which will involve many government agencies from the federal government, the Department of Defense, the state of Utah, obviously many local players, and many others that will be involved in that. And we'll be kind of just working through our emergency operations plan and our catastrophic earthquake plan to see how we really right now are, to test our preparedness and readiness to deal with a catastrophic event and find ways that we can improve. It's always an opportunity for us to look at what we can do good or do well now and what needs to be done better, and then we just continue the cycle of planning, training, exercise, and keep getting better until the day we actually have to really deal with that event.
Which we hope never happens.
Yes. Yeah.
But we expect that it will, and that's why we have to train for that level of what our worst case scenario is. It's a 7.0 earthquake that happens in winter. It would disrupt everything we do, and we've talked in previous PrepCasts about what that earthquake threat looks like. But people can go learn more about that at bereadyutah.gov. They can go on the Shakeout website, shakeout.org/Utah, and they can participate in that so that people can do their own preparedness at the same time that the state government is doing its preparedness.
And this is a good reminder of that. If the state is preparing at that level with all the things that you just described, what can we do at home to kind of follow that example? Will there be anything for the public to see with these exercises, Joe?
You know, there may be some resources moving around. Right now, a lot of the exercise is still being developed right now. So we are calling it a full-scale exercise because we're mobilizing so many parts, and we're going to be having a lot of conversations. But remember, our mission is a coordination mission, which means a lot of people sitting down and talking together. That's what a lot of coordination looks like at the state level. And so we will definitely be sharing information about it so the public is aware that their government is doing everything it can to be the best resilient government it can be.
Now, we do have a couple of other events, DEM outreach events that we have. Do you want to talk about those? One in March, one in April?
Yeah, well, we've got the Be Ready Utah Expo that's coming up, so you can go to bereadyutahexpo.org. I think is the URL that we bought.
Yeah.
So bereadyutahexpo.org. And for $5, you can learn amazing things over 2 days in Sandy. You can hear about all of the disaster preparedness. You can learn about cooking and all of the things you need to be a resilient person. We bring together experts, and there are vendors, and you can start to buy your own emergency supplies there. So that is March 13th and 14th. And that'll be happening in Sandy.
And we're looking forward to that.
And we appreciate you being willing to do that.
And in April, we've got Great Utah Shakeout.
Absolutely, April 16th, 2020. Right now we have over 500,000 people have registered to participate, which we are always overjoyed that Utah has such a great culture of preparedness. We just need to keep that going. And so we have this event every year, the Great Utah Shakeout, where people can practice their own earthquake preparedness. And the earthquake actions of drop, cover, hold on, shakeout.org/Utah, and you can come be part of 1 million people who will participate. We had more than 1 million last year, and we expect to keep that going for 2020.
Okay, 2 great events. Now, where else can people learn about the Division of Emergency Management? What's our website?
Yeah, dem.utah.gov. We are under the family of the Department of Public Safety, like Kris mentioned. That's our parent company, if you will. And we have information there for the public. But I would say a lot of our website is also geared toward the emergency managers themselves so that they know what resources are available. Sample emergency declarations, information on flood risk and flood mapping, just to help the emergency managers do the very best job that they can throughout our state.
Yeah, and talking about those local emergency managers, I would suggest that they also look and make themselves aware of what resources they have within their communities if they're looking for information. Many of our local emergency managers have websites, they have social media, and they have resources for their community. So that's also another great way for them to get information.
Absolutely. Get in touch with your local emergency management organizations. Well, I know you two are both busy. We're out of time. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedules to be here on the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Thank you for supporting our PrepCast and allowing this to happen as well. So thank you for watching us today. Again, these are available on the Be Ready Utah YouTube channel. Watch for them on Facebook and Twitter. And as Joe mentioned, look for information on the Be Ready Utah Expo and Great Utah Shakeout, both coming up here very soon. Thank you very much.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Like what you're seeing? Have a question about anything related to emergency preparedness? Or do you have a comment about something you've learned as you make a plan or get a kit? We'd love to hear from you. Comment or reply to us on Twitter or Facebook at Be Ready Utah with hashtag BRUPrepCast or in the comments on YouTube. We'll talk about it on one of the next episodes of the Be Ready Utah PrepCast. Don't forget to share these videos and your own adventures in preparedness with your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers. because anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness. See you next time.